President Trump sparking another media firestorm. Critics up in arms this time over a New York Times report about the president wanting the Justice Department to prosecute Hillary Clinton as well as former FBI Director James Comey. Some in the media sounding the alarm about Trump's intentions.
And this is a defining moment in the history of the Trump presidency, because this is a demonstration of his unfitness to be president of the United States, of his abuse of presidential power, of his embrace of authoritarianism.
Now, this news, I want to be clear with you, is a scale way beyond anything else we have seen in legal controversies with Donald Trump.
This is what happens in authoritarian countries. The president orders, the leader orders the investigation and prosecution of his political enemies.
But supporters argue that Trump has been saying this for a long time, like during the presidential debate 2 years ago.
If I win, I am going to instruct my Attorney General to get a special prosecutor to look into your situation, because there has never been so many lies, so much deception.
By the way.
So, Dana, you have a situation here where people, like Alan Dershowitz today on Steve's show said, you can't do this. You do not use you don't use the criminal justice system to punish your political opponents. What do you think?
Well, I think that so you can say a lot of things, right, inside a White House. You can say, I want this to happen. And then you might have a general counsel that's very wise and smart and clever, like Don McGahn, who says, it's not a good idea, Mr. President. We're not going to do that. And so his lawyer is Bill Burke. He's being represented. Bill Burke is, full disclosure, a good friend of mine. But he says McGahn was not going to comment on the legal advice he gave to the president, but he noted that the president never, to his knowledge, ordered anyone prosecute Hillary Clinton or James Comey. So, again, it's like, so he might have brought it up. And like, maybe like you're frustrated. Like, well, they're going to investigate me. Like, investigate her. I want you to investigate her. Sir, we can't do that. Okay, fine. Like, we're not going to do that. And they move on. When they say that this is what happens in a dictatorship, no, what happens in a dictatorship is that the prosecution actually happens, and it's not a fair trial. There is no due process, and that person is immediately thrown in jail or extradited or something like that. That's not what happened in this case. So that's what I would say.
And, Steve, what would you say to people who say, why is he discussing this? And then others said, as you saw on the tape, that he's been saying this during the campaign. He was saying, oh, yeah, right, if I'm president, I'm going to get my special prosecutor. But McGahn and others told him, this could result in your impeachment, Mr. President.
Sure. And we had, when the conversation you're talking about, Juan, where we had Alan Dershowitz in this studio this morning, he said, it's not impeachable, but it's just dumb. He should not have done that. But I tell you what, he really amped it up, the then candidate, Donald Trump, because it's one thing for you to say it when you're out on the campaign trail, but then when you are sitting or standing right next to the person and saying, if I win, big trouble, that's something. But that's Donald Trump.
But it sounds like rhetoric on the campaign trail, but when you're actually proposing, I think is what set people off. So, Jedediah, you hear these claims of authoritarianism, you hear people saying this is worse than since Watergate. What do you think?
It's ridiculous. I mean, what's the story here? I'm still trying to figure out what the story is. He didn't prosecute anybody, actually. You have his legal representation coming out and saying, yeah, we didn't hear him say that he was actually going to prosecute anybody. It's just so interesting that now the New York Times has gone from stories where they actually thought they were going to find collusion. Now they've decided, well, we didn't find the collusion we were looking for. So now they're writing outrage stories about things he might have said that might have happened. And now you have cable news heads exploding over this. I don't see the story. He didn't prosecute anybody. He didn't do anything about it. It's not a story if somebody says, oh, yeah, I'm going to do this, and then nothing actually happens. I don't know. What are we supposed to be upset about?
You mean even if you have to restrain the president, the most powerful man?
First of all, how do you even know that you actually had to restrain him? This is taking
Well, Don McGahn wrote a memo, so the memo exists.
He wrote a memo. Okay, so, but somebody's saying, and also, like, it's not just because he wasn't just saying these things because these people were, for example, Comey, for example, oh, these are his adversaries. He was saying it because he had legitimate concerns about Hillary Clinton and bleaching a server and taking a hammer to a server and saying, listen, I'm going to, I think this should be looked into. And that was a point that resonated with every American sitting at home saying, what Comey did seems unreasonable, what she did seems unreasonable. And it was a selling point for him to say, this doesn't look right. right how this went down, and I think it should be looked into. That's very different from him mandating, prosecuting his enemies, and actually following through like a dictator. He's not a dictator. Nothing about this is dictatorial.
Okay, so Greg, what do you make of this?
If you took every outrage that the media embraced that was born from Trump venting, you would have nothing, all right? His venting is defined by thinking out loud and wondering what possibility is out there that could solve something that bugs him. And then somebody says something to him and he goes, oh, okay. And then he finds something else. Trump is a salesman and a businessman. And what do you do when you enter a new job? You ask a bunch of questions. Some of the questions are incredibly stupid. And that is why Donald Trump is different than anybody in the media, because the media is too insecure to ask stupid questions. It's almost a superhero power that Trump has. His willingness not to feel shame when he's wrong and when he asks a dumb question. Hey, can I prosecute her? You can't prosecute her. Oh, okay. There's this kind of amnesia that I read about where you forget whatever is absorbed that same day. So every new day is new. The media has Trump amnesia. They wake up every day as though it's the first day of the presidency, and they freak out. In fact, I don't know why his critics are so fat. Because they're always up in arms. They should be so fit. Yeah. They should be so fit because they're always like this, screaming. They should be like on the cover of Men's Health. Instead, they're just bloated. How are they so bloated when they're so screaming all the time?
Well, can I add one thing on this? Because Barack Obama campaigned on closing Gitmo.
Yes.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
Okay, and do you guys remember the other story that on his first day in the Oval Office after he's sworn in, he's sitting around there and he's like, okay, where's the paperwork?
Yeah.
I'm going to close Gitmo.
Yeah.
And his staff says, oh, sir, you actually can't do that.
Yeah.
That's actually something that's go through Congress. He's like, what do you mean I can't do that?
Everybody does
because
this.
You can't do that because the law says, and that's why you have smart people around you that can advise you on things that you might not necessarily know about that are detailed in the law.
So, Greg, just a quick response to what you said. I think that the liberal side would say, are we normalizing what is very unusual behavior, the president trying to use the Justice Department to punish his enemies?
No, I think that, A, the word normalizing should not be normalized. I hate that word. Number two, I think we're seeing the Trump amnesia, the psychology of this, is people are exhausted by him, okay? Yeah. And so here's an experiment. If you erased Trump from today, you'd have the largest peacetime expansion probably in history, dramatic declines in poverty and violence worldwide. Aside from Syria and Afghanistan, things are looking pretty good. There's a lot of prosperity. There's a lot of fresh ideas and new technology. It's a simpler but somehow complicated life with technology. So my point is, despite this, there's a sense of doom around the corner. Everybody thinks something awful is happening, even though the physical evidence is telling you there's optimism everywhere. And the reason is because all of this is a psychological problem. This is a psychological problem. It certainly isn't a physical one.
All right. I guess that's why, that's why he has like 30-something% of...
No, it's actually higher than that. You misrepresented that.
All right. And then there's President Trump saying it's a no-brainer on who he thinks should be named Time Magazine's Person of the Year.
It's called Person of the Year, right? It's no longer Man of the Year, right? Okay. I don't know. That's up to Time Magazine. I've been there before. I can't imagine anybody else other than Trump.
Even you find that funny.
Well,
you find that funny.
So wait, is he serious?
I mean, I think he's partially serious. I do.
I
think that's just how he is, though. This is like people who don't get that still just don't get Trump.
But
that's just how he feels. He feels like, hey, listen, I'm the president. I'm doing a whole bunch of cool stuff. I could be Man of the Year. I don't think they're going to pick him. But
one, Person of the Year or Man of the Year or Thing of the Year, I looked it up, and apparently it is the greatest influence on the events of the year. Who has influenced more things in the past year?
But maybe on the merits it'll be him.
Could be fire.
But it's going to be Pelosi, right?
Really?
I mean, she's going to get. I just think that she's going to get Person of the Year. They're at 39 seats flipped. She's going to be Speaker again. It's not a man. It's a woman. I'm just telling you, on the merits, Trump might deserve it, but I am putting my mark down.
And you're rarely wrong on this. I will say, you know what's great? I thought we were going to talk about the Correspondents' Dinner. There's another example of where Trump made something better. The dinner has now returned to its roots, which is about the importance of journalism.
Yep.
After decades of celebrity worship, it was the curse of the press. The insecure and homely in the media, always wanted to be near the cool kids. Trump cured them of that.
Yep.
I agree.
And now that they don't have the comic, after him,
Yes.
he's going to
And
go.
then he said he might go, and then he'll be the funniest speech they've had.
Right.
He'll be the funniest speech. Yeah. I'm sure it'll just be uproarious. I can see it.
You will be laughing,
You'll
Juan.
laugh.
You will be.
I can't laugh,
might be
because if people
incredulity,
say
but you'll
Juan was
laugh.
laughing at the president.
No,
can't
laugh
do it.
with the
Not with
president.
the president.